Poprawiło stan rzeczy w tym kraju.
I'm not used to seeing 57 takes. I'm really not. I'm not used to doing a minimum of 32 takes.
They advance the idea that poor people have nothing to say in the affairs of this country.
He wanted it tried a bunch of different ways. It was like workshopping on film. You know, we did the happy version, we did the crying version, we did the furious version. I mean, each scene was taken to these degrees beyond which you weren't going for the ultimate take, you were going for a lot of choices.
I'm sure the reason for the multiple takes of different scenes was because of his attention to detail and his concern that he get it right, that it was going to last, that this was something for the ages.
I can honestly say we all thought we were making the next Gone with the Wind, because that's what Michael imbued in you, that you were making this wonderful, fabulous, important movie. And everybody gave their all.
We really believed in him. I mean, he was a wonderful, charismatic person. And if you were on the inside circle with Michael, there was nothing like it. You know, you just felt you were riding on air. And you could do anything.
The confidence Cimino imbued in others came not just from the force of his personality, but also the scale of his success. The Deer Hunter had been a towering achievement. It brought with it respect and newfound power. On Heaven's Gate, the producer was Cimino's longtime friend and associate, Joanne Corelli. Corelli had never produced before. She had held a lesser title on The Deer Hunter and owed her promotion to Cimino. In theory, she had final word on matters of budget, but no one at UA or on the set had any doubt that Heaven's Gate was Michael's show. He was the one in charge.
And there is no strong producer to be there and say, Michael, it's already 10 o'clock. Move on. There was nobody there to do that for him. So he was his own boss, basically. You know, Joanne Corelli was a producer, but they were friends. So, you know, she could not say much about it. She just had to let him go.
One day, we were shooting a scene with Christopherson drunk in his hotel room, and the mayor and the group of townsgentlemen come in.
I had to wake up from a sound, drunken sleep and crack this bullwhip across the camera. I did it every time. So I knew at least it wasn't driving me crazy that I was messing up every time, as some other ones did.
I did watch Chris kind of come back out and, you know, and crack the whip again, and I noticed he hit his face. You know, if you crack a whip wrong, it'll come right across your face. He got himself once, and yeah, it's a pretty. I think he got maybe got somebody else once. I mean, it really, wow.
That's all we shot that day was 52 takes of The Master. That was it. And it went on and on and on and on.
From somebody on the outside, it would look like it was almost too much, but it never appeared that way to me. It was like, oh, this guy really cares.
I bet Michelangelo cared. I bet Picasso cared. You know, anybody who has believes in his artistic vision, I bet they care. I probably didn't care that much, but I was glad to be working with somebody who did.
In the coming months, there would be an avalanche of bad press about Heaven's Gate, consuming any consideration for the artistic value of Cimino's film. A picture would be painted of chaos and incompetence, but that simply was not true. On Michael Cimino's set, there was the opposite, a calm, determined, relentless pursuit of perfection. Unfortunately, that costs a lot of money. It didn't take long for Stephen Bach and David Field to realize that something was disastrously wrong with Heaven's Gate, at least from the perspective of the studio paying the bills. In fact, they knew something had to be done 1 week into production. For at the end of the first 6 days of shooting, Michael Cimino had fallen 5 days behind schedule and spent $900,000 for a minute and a half of usable film. 2 weeks in, he was 10 days behind schedule and 15 pages behind. By then, Michael Cimino had exposed 2 hours of film, less than 3 minutes of which he was willing to approve, all at a rough cost of $1 million per usable minute. The alarm bells went off at UA.
Michael always said, you always tell the studio what they want to hear, and then you just do what you're going to do.
All right, let's just take that last little bit again.
Atmosphere here on the sidewalk. You know what your instructions are. Quiet, please. There you go. Quiet, please. Ready? Here we go. Stand by and roll, please. Keep camera mark. And action.
Hollywood in the 1970s was infatuated with the director. For nearly a decade, it lavished its attention and money on director-driven films.
And cut. Print.
But by 1979, auteurs were no longer such a wise investment. Peter Bogdanovich had permanently damaged his career with At Long Last Love. William Friedkin had failed spectacularly when he remade the French classic Wages of Fear. Even Martin Scorsese and Steven Spielberg had suffered their own setbacks. New York, New York in 1941. And then there was Michael Cimino's Heaven's Gate. In time, Hollywood would pass judgment on this debacle. UA should have fired Cimino. They should have shut down production. But to the executives at UA, who were not operating with the benefit of 20/20 hindsight, the solution to their Cimino problem wasn't so clear.
What we wanted was a picture. We never didn't want the picture, you see. If we had been able to sit back and say, oh, who the hell cares? We don't want the picture anyway. Let's just cut it off now, settle the lawsuits, and the money that we would have spent on Heaven's Gate, we'll spend on these 10 other pictures, which are nice pictures that we can't now afford to make because we're putting all the money in Montana. It was never that. We always wanted the picture, rightly or wrongly.
The executives at United Artists had entered Heaven's Gate believing it would propel them to the Academy Awards, validate them in the wake of Arthur Krim's departure. But just weeks into production, it was alarmingly clear that more than status was at stake. Heaven's Gate was shaping up to be the longest, most expensive film in Hollywood history, the kind of picture that ends careers. UA knew they had to contain the damage, rein in Cimino. But as they started to search for answers, it was also clear they had no experience to draw on.
I had not been that close to a shooting movie in my life. This is my... well, a year before, I'd been on the third floor of 20th Century Fox as a glorified story editor for Alan Ladd Jr. I didn't know what I was doing.
None of us had been through an experience like this before. But other people in the movie business had. So we looked at what are the basic options in film history. So there was the Cleopatra option.
Cleopatra was the most notorious Hollywood debacle before Heaven's Gate. Made in 1963, its production costs became so overwhelming that 20th Century Fox was forced to shut its doors for 4 months, take everyone off payroll, and hope for the best. It was only the public's fascination with the off-screen romance of Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton that saved the film and the studio from total disaster.
The Cleopatra option is let it go where it goes and pray. That was something we could not allow to happen. We could not allow Heaven's Gate to close the doors of UA and send everybody home and pray that the picture would work at the box office. So that wasn't going to work. Well, the next option that I remember we discussed was the Queen Kelly option.
Queen Kelly was a 1928 Gloria Swanson film directed by Erich von Stroheim. Von Stroheim's vision was epic, but the film's overt sexuality and von Stroheim's unbridled spending forced Joseph P. Kennedy, the film's backer and Swanson's lover, to shut down production.
That was one of our options. We just eat what we've already spent and send everybody home and forget about it. That would have been a very damaging thing for us to do. We would have been Philistines by firing this man who has just won 5 Academy Awards. So this was not a good option.